Hi.
Hi, welcome back. Hi, Cricket. Just making her presence known already.
Early on.
That's right. I don't know what her deal was. She jumped out. She's been sleeping in this laundry basket for whatever reason. And tonight she's like, oh, you guys are in the other room, so I'm going to come bother you.
Right.
I don't want to be on there. So it's been a while. Anyway, welcome back. Shower Talk with Tina and Norm. Episode 56. It's actually 56 this time.
56.
Yes, we got it correct. We looked. Thankfully, it's a professional production here, people. But anyway,
real life shit.
That's right, real life shit. So today, what are we talking about?
We are talking about Limbo.
Yes.
And the episode is called
Going Nowhere Slowly. Limbo, going nowhere slowly.
Ain't that the truth?
It is. It's we've said it before, but I don't know that we've ever specifically talked about it. So today we're going to talk about Limbo and why it sucks.
Yeah.
And maybe some things you can do to help yourself out of it.
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah, maybe. Or else we'll just bullshit for an hour and that's how this will go. It's pretty much how we're doing it anyway, right?
No, that's
just
true.
Wing it.
So, yeah.
But obviously, as always, we thank our sponsor, Soria Wellness at LA Tan.
Absolutely.
Red light and emerald laser and
tanning.
We haven't done tanning in a couple weeks. It's sunny out. It's summertime.
We don't tan in the summer.
We tan in the wintertime to keep that brownish,
golden
glow
to not
happening.
Be pasty white.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I didn't want to say pasty white, but that's pretty much what it is. But yeah, reach out to those guys. Check it out.
Absolutely.
We encourage you to try it out. It Red Light has, and it's red light. I mean, the emerald laser is a great thing that we've been using, but red light I think is a huge thing right now.
Absolutely.
Tons of research on how red light can affect you, both the light and the laser portion of red light.
Yeah.
And what it does for you. So
Give
lots of benefits. It's kind of like in the vein of cold plunges and infrared saunas and all that good stuff, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look into any of that or you're interested in this, is along those same kind of lines, but makes a difference.
Yeah.
So
give them a call. They're out in Wheaton, Illinois.
Wheaton, yeah. They have a couple other locations. They could probably set you up if you call them, though.
Yeah.
But anyway. So yeah, Limbo. It's a fantastic place to be, right?
You know what's really funny? I think about when you're growing up. Well, I grew up, went to Catholic school. And do you know what they call it between?
Yes.
What do they call it?
Yeah, I'm not, what am I?
No,
completely
but you know what?
Ignorant to this stuff?
I
don't know, Tina. Yes, of course I know. It's purgatory.
That's what Limbo is.
Yes.
It just made it sound better for you to say it versus me.
For those of you that are listening and not watching, she was giving me a look like, really?
Just say
You're
the
gonna
word.
Give me shit about it?
No, but it's because it was funny because you said it. But that's what Limbo feels like. Purgatory. Truly.
Yeah, you're stuck.
You're stuck in a place and you don't know what's happening, what's going on. Are you going up? Are you going down? What the fuck's happening?
Right. I feel like the Willy Wonka. Is it raining? Is it snowing?
So, yeah, it's if you've ever been in limbo, and limbo could be, I mean, so many different things. Like, you know, we know people that have been waiting months for jobs. They've been on several interviews.
Yeah. And
this process is like they're dying to get away from their job and they just start a whole new life. And it's like months in.
Absolutely.
And it's like, oh my, that's limbo.
Yeah.
And I think of how miserable people are when they're waiting. That waiting is anxiety inducing for people.
Yeah. And we talk about all the time how bad it sucks, right? Being in limbo sucks. You know, we talked about one of our very good friends who's going through a divorce and it keeps getting dragged out and dragged out and dragged out. And he is really in purgatory. Like he's stuck in between rock bottom and getting out of it. He just doesn't know where he's going to be. And
around every corner, it's just
something
another
new,
slap in the face. Oh,
and
my God.
I mean, I think, you know, not to give out the advice now, and then that's just the end of the episode. But the ultimate thing with limbo is you have to keep going.
You do.
Yeah, you
Even
have to
when you
keep
don't
going.
feel like it, you have to find a way to keep going.
You keep going.
Yeah.
Because there's the light at the end of the tunnel. You don't always see it, or it's
Right.
just a little glint.
Right.
Right. But you'll get closer and closer and closer. Sometimes, depending on what it is, goes quickly. Sometimes not so quickly.
Yeah.
It just depends.
It's like walking through the desert, I guess, right? In the sand, and you just keep walking and you're hoping that you're going to get to the water.
Yeah.
The mirage of water.
Right. The oasis. I remember those cartoons all the time. They'd be like, they'd see the shimmer on the horizon and trees. Magically, they'd see that. Yeah, I think, this came up today. We were talking a little bit, and I was texting with a coworker who's having a hard time at work. And she's waiting for a resolution on something, and, I can relate to her because I've gone through my own stuff at work, and it's hard, when you don't have answers on stuff, you don't know what's going to happen or where you're going. You don't know what to do. And it causes you to question everything.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah.
You're back and forth. You're all over the place because it's ultimately Limbo's the ultimate non-closure.
That's exactly
right?
what it is.
It's
Absolutely.
the ultimate non-closure.
Mm-hmm.
And Cricket just went into the litter box behind me and did something. I don't know what she did. I'll keep you posted if it's something terrible. She was in and out of there quick, though, so I'm hoping it was okay. And she went in the other room because now she's probably embarrassed that I'm talking about her bathroom habits.
Anyway.
I'm in limbo right now, waiting for some aroma to hit me in the face. I don't know what's going to happen.
It's not
terrible.
It's not.
Okay.
Anyway,
we don't know. I'm stuck here.
So that is limbo, though, as far as the work stuff.
Yeah.
Work stuff is obviously, I mean, all of it is important to a certain extent, right? I mean, depending on where you are in your life, we all are in different phases, different ages, things like that. However, because most of us have to work.
Yeah.
So being in work limbo is terrible because especially if you're like the main breadwinner of your family and you got all the weight of your whole family on your shoulders to pay the mortgage and, to go to school and pay for all the things that your family, I mean, it's like,
Right.
So when you said it earlier about the moving forward thing, so I think that's part of the whole mental health. It kind of ties in a little bit as well, and why it's important to have the right people around you that you can count on. Because when you have the wrong people around you, you end up doing stupid things. You potentially find distractions while you're in limbo that actually make your limbo go on longer.
Okay.
Right? Because you didn't, well, I mean, we've known people who were in the middle of something like a divorce and let something bad happen in between the divorce that created even more problems for a divorce. And so it's like the limbo goes on longer because of a silly decision that was made. Right. So, I mean,
could be right.
And it wasn't necessarily a quote unquote bad decision. It was a silly decision.
Yeah.
And again, it's because you're wanting to move forward and you're wanting like I think about, I'm going to use an example like of people like in my work. Like sometimes I'll be working with a buyer who just got they're in the middle of trying to buy a house. It's their first time buying a house. And they, right now their mortgage payment or their rent payment is like $1,800 a month. And they're saying that, we really don't want our mortgage payment to be more than like, $2,200, $2,300. So they're already going up in payment from where they are in rent, but they also understand they're going to own. And then they can't find anything, but then they get this raise or a promotion at work. Like literally I've had people call me and say, I just got a letter that I'm getting a promotion. So I want to up the price of my house and now I want to go up to 2,700. And you're like, you didn't even get a paycheck yet to go like,
right.
you haven't even lived off this money yet. Like you literally didn't earn a penny of that yet. And you're already,
right.
And you try to keep people on track with that. But again, it's like everybody wants to move forward so fast all the time. Like, and I understand this is the way life is now.
Yeah.
However, it's also up to us to pump the brakes sometimes and go, okay, hold on.
Yeah.
However, that doesn't mean we want to be sitting in limbo slowly either. However, sometimes we create it.
Yeah.
Right?
We do. No, I agree. I think there's there's different variations in it. Like, so good friends of ours went under contract on a house this last week. I'm helping them buy a house. And, you know, we had an inspection done. They really didn't take issue with anything that came up in the inspection because they already knew these things were going to come up and they were prepared for it. Our offer incorporated that. The pricing of the house already incorporated a lot of that anyway. But there was one issue that came up and we went back and requested it from the seller to be fixed. And it for me, it wasn't a big deal because I'm used to dealing with it. Right. Maybe my first few deals, I'm like, oh my God, what's going to happen?
Right.
But in this case, it's like, okay, you just have to wait it out. They will respond. They have a legal right to wait however many days to respond. And you don't know what they're doing on the other end of things,
right?
How they're trying to figure things out.
Right.
On your side, it seems like
it's like
they're fucking around.
Yeah, and it's right there.
Oh, they're going to cancel the deal. They're fucking around. They're pissed off at us because we asked for, we shouldn't have asked. Maybe we should have asked. How dare they act this way when nothing's happened, right? And this goes back a few episodes ago where you're suffering an anxiety and a panic attack about something that hasn't even fucking happened.
Guilty.
So, and this was 2 days.
Yeah.
This was 2 days. Now, 2 days when you're in that situation and you're that person, could seem like an eternity.
Yeah.
When it really isn't.
Right.
And I was not panicked at all.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, worst case scenario, they come back and say, no, they're not going to do it.
Right.
Okay, well, what do we do? We're talking about, a certain dollar amount, and it was not a lot.
No.
In the grand scheme of things, right?
Of course.
So if we wound up having to do the fix ourselves when they moved into the house, then we'd have to do the fix.
Yeah.
Or we walk away and we go find another house. That's how it works.
But that is a good example of limbo, though. On people waiting. We put in an offer. When are they going to accept our offer? When are they going to? Especially when you're chasing after the other realtor and asking questions, or you're not getting responses, or I think the non-response is bullshit. And I understand that. I had the attorney say to me once that a non-response is a response.
Yeah, right.
And I don't disagree to a certain extent. However, I call bullshit. It goes in, it doesn't take long to say, sorry. The fact that everyone could just ghost people and could just walk away from people so easily and it's annoying. I'm just going to say it's annoying.
When it comes to the real estate side of things, and this isn't a real estate podcast, but it relates to what we're talking about. When it comes to the deal side of it, when you submit an offer on something, you have to be okay with waiting.
Of course.
You have to be okay with waiting.
Of course.
Because if a house has been sitting on the market for a long time and you submit an offer and they take forever, what are you waiting for? Right? To me, it's like we're the only person that's come in with an offer and damn well we are. What's taking so long?
Right.
Okay. So do I like that part? No.
Right.
But again, if you think of it from your side and maybe how busy you are or what it is you do for a living that takes up your time.
Yeah.
They may be dealing with the same or worse.
Yeah.
On their side. You
don't know if something came up, somebody passed away,
there's
somebody
so
lost
many
their
variables
job.
in there. They're not doing it to screw with you most of the time.
Well, that's because I think a lot of times people don't understand life goes on every single day with or without us. and that's our jobs, our friends, our
Yeah.
family, our everything.
Right.
It literally everything just keeps moving
Right.
forward, which is why going back to the limbo thing, we keep saying keep moving forward. And so I don't know if you'll use I'm going to use my example of my limbo. So
Okay.
for me, um my limbo would be my private life in my personal life. Um when my ex-husband left, um we didn't talk for about, I think it was like 3 or 4 months before we actually had a conversation about what was actually happening. So and we didn't talk at all. I think maybe like a little bit
Yeah.
to say we're separating right now
Yeah.
or whatever. I think something along those lines,
Yeah.
but it wasn't really like, it was very little contact. But so for me that was limbo.
Yeah.
And I was like every day, and it's funny because every day seemed like years.
Yeah.
During that time. It was like it was like 2 days went by and I felt like it had been like weeks or whatever. And
Right.
so then and dealing with my abandonment at that moment in time, because I was abandoned literally, and like,
Right.
so now you throw that on there, it's literally like gasoline on a fire at that point in time. And so I sat there and said to myself, I have options, right? So what are my options? I could either, sit around and feel sorry for myself, and just lay around and be depressed and sad. I could be angry and, throw all his clothes outside and whatever, which was never an option for me. But I mean, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
and then, then all the things that people were trying to tell me to go distract myself with, go out and have sex and meet people and date and do all this other stuff, which I was like, no.
Right.
I was like, I need to figure this out. I need to understand what happened. Why did it happen? What was my part in it? Like, is it something that'll be fixed or not fixed? Like, it was literally like all kinds of stuff. And so that was limbo. And then the great part was we finally had a conversation, however many months later. I called and said, hey, I think we need to sit down and talk and whatever. And we met and we talked for like 4 hours.
Yeah.
And we just laid everything out on the table and it was over. Like, it was over. I mean, like at that point in time for me as well, it was obvious. You start to realize when you're thinking more clearly and you are moving forward, you start to realize that I wasn't paying attention to this, or I wasn't paying attention to that, or maybe I was holding on to something that wasn't really there or whatever, that kind of stuff. And so it was over. And then the funny part is that once it was over and the decision was made, then it was limbo again.
Right.
Like waiting to sign the papers.
Yes.
So, it's just kind of funny because you're like, oh, I just like, because you look at it as you want to move on with your life. And not that you don't, because I did, because ultimately I met you and everything else.
Sure.
However, I was still legally married.
Yeah.
So even though I was married on paper, that's why a lot of times you talk to people and they'll say they're still, oh, I'm dating someone who's married. And then it's not that they're married, it's that they're married on paper. Maybe they've been separated for 10 years or whatever. That's why you have to understand the situation, right? So like, but
Absolutely.
it's still limbo, because that piece of paper legally, it keeps you legally attached to that other person.
Yeah.
So you can't get married again. You can't go do certain things because you're still tied to this other person legally, and there's repercussions because you're married to this person.
Right.
So I feel like that's a big part of the limbo part. That's why sometimes you just have to say, and I understand by no means are all situations going to be easy, simple.
Yes.
Let's face it, lawyers muck it all up and they want to keep you in court as long as they can. We've seen it before, especially if you have kids involved. But the hate, the back and forth and the hate, you're keeping yourself in limbo longer by being a hateful, bitter person.
Sure.
Yeah, truly, you're keeping yourself in limbo longer.
Yes, because you're extending those feelings.
Absolutely.
But as you were talking about some of that, one of the things, a very small example of limbo is driving someplace, right? Mm-hmm. You drive from, let's say we go from here to, whatever. We're 20 minutes down the road. We go through many series of limbo on the way there because we're in a hurry and then we get stopped by a stoplight. Oh, yeah. And we're like, fuck. And you have to sit there. And that's the worst. You're like, I'm in a hurry. I got to get going. Okay. Why is the light taking so long? What the hell?
That's
and
true.
And then it changes. Yay, we're free. Boom. Another light. Son of a bitch.
I'm
right?
getting caught by every light.
That's right. Fucking every fucking light. I swear to God. And of course, nobody's coming from the other direction, but the light still had to change for some reason. So when you think about it, everything has a period of limbo. If you're going to have kids, okay, you're planning to have kids, all right? You're in this limbo period, this waiting period of seeing if you're going to get pregnant. You're actively trying, right? And you're working on it. Some people, it just pops up, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Those weren't planning on it though. So now you're pregnant. You've got to wait 9 months now for the kid to come out so that you can move on with the next stages of your life.
That's a good point.
You can plan for a lot of stuff. Everything has a series of limbos to them ultimately.
Yeah.
And we're just used to dealing with certain ones or accepting certain ones as a part of life.
Yeah.
And while I don't agree that all limbo is something we should have to put up with, sometimes it's not within our control.
Yeah.
And when it's not in our control, you do what you can up to a certain point.
Right.
And then it's up to the other person, entity, whatever it is, to do what they have to do.
Yeah.
And a great example is right now at work. We've been short-staffed for a while, and we've actively started interviewing people regularly, actually building a hiring list. But for those people that have come in and interviewed, the response time back, because we're a government agency, is slow as shit sometimes, right?
Yeah.
They'll get a letter back that says you're getting moved to the next stage, which is background checks on people. And, our background checks aren't just run a little thing and go, okay, yeah, they're good. No, these detectives go out and talk to old neighbors. They talk to people they know. They literally dig into their life to make sure there's somebody that can work for a police agency. And there's a reason they're handling, yes, we're dispatchers, but we're handling people's personal information, their criminal histories. We see that stuff. So that you can't be a criminal and be trusted with that stuff, right? Or that's the idea. That's not to say that people haven't been reformed, et cetera.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But that process is a long time for us. And that process is a long time because the people that do those background checks are tasked with doing the background checks for all of our departments. And all of our departments are massively shorthanded.
Right.
And there's a lot of people that they're trying to get through the system. So while they are actively working on it, it takes them a long time because there's so many out there they're trying to do, and they're spread thin. There's only 2 to 3 people that are handling all of these.
Did they tell them at the beginning this could take 6 months?
I think initially when we were really starting to interview last year, I don't think we knew it was going to take that long. And then we started figuring it out and people were going somewhere else. And now, yes, they're all prepped for it.
There you go.
But if you're that person, you're waiting to hear. You're waiting to hear.
You're still waiting
When's it going to happen?
But you were given, you're not
given
given closure,
right.
but you were given that. So I think, and this is just my opinion, for me, limbo is you keep moving forward, but you also, part of the moving forward is you're digging for answers, looking for the closure, whatever. And sometimes you have to give yourself the closure.
Sure.
Especially if you're trying to run after the person that hurt you for closure. Why do you want answers from someone who lied to you, hurt you, deceived you, betrayed you? What do you want answers from? Sure. What answers are you going to get from them? That's going to make you feel better.
I think in our case, in the hiring process, you get a little bit more information ahead of time that helps you, hopefully helps you prepare for that. But that doesn't mean they're not sitting there waiting.
Understood.
The difference, though, is in the example that you use, and it's a great one because there's a lot of limbo, especially when you're talking about relationships and healing and breakups.
Yeah, that's where people are most limbo.
They are. They're in the limbo of, like in the case that you use, or even in my case, it took me a long time to work through and get my divorce finalized.
Mm-hmm.
That was a lot of limbo trying to figure that out. And it wasn't even really contentious. It just took a long damn time, and figuring out the logistics. And we didn't use attorneys, so maybe that's why, maybe not. Maybe it would have taken longer. I don't know what would have happened. But at least in that case, what direction you're headed. You just don't know what the next step is or what the person's thinking. Right. On a breakup, there's the limbo of, especially if it's something that they're working on, right?
Yeah.
So there's this kind of limbo, but you're actively working on fixing it, but there's this doubt. Maybe I should say, maybe it's not really limbo for something like that. But afterwards, there's the limbo of, when are you going to heal? When am I going to get past this? Right.
Well, you have to let go first.
You do. And you have to realize, like you just said a minute ago, if the person didn't want to be with you,
mm-hmm.
there's some sort of acceptance that has to happen that they just didn't want to be with you.
Right.
And why? I don't know. And you know what? You may never actually fully find out.
That is correct.
And
it may have nothing to do with you.
Correct. Right. So that limbo that you are in, you can solve yourself.
Correct.
Does it feel the best? No. But you solve it yourself by going, okay, they decided they didn't want to be with me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't want me.
Right.
That sucks. But you know what? You're better off.
You are. Because otherwise that means you were settling and begging for crumbs from someone who didn't want to give it to you. And why would you put yourself in that position?
Right. And if you decide to stay because they came back, now you're basically saying you're willing to accept that.
That's
and
correct.
They're willing to give it.
Yeah.
You gave the example of your ex basically saying, you're like, well, why did you stay in it? Well, I was getting what I needed from the relationship, right? I know.
The first one.
Sore spot, right.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, he literally said, well, I was getting everything I wanted, and if you were okay with it, why would I say anything?
Right.
Still to this day.
I know.
It's like, oh my God. But I mean,
but it's a great example of why the hell would you want to put up with that?
Exactly.
Because then you are literally...
I felt so foolish, but I was so grateful that I heard it, understood it.
So finding your own closure
is the best
on
thing
Limbo,
for you. Mm-hmm.
It's the best thing for you, but it also shows you that you are worthwhile to yourself.
That's correct.
And that other person isn't worth your effort or time anymore.
That's
because
correct.
They don't have that respect for you.
That's correct.
And they've already told you and shown you.
They don't deserve it.
Move on.
That's right.
You have to take it in and go, okay. That's not to say that it doesn't hurt for a while.
Of course it does.
Of course it hurts. It bothers you.
Well, yeah, no one likes to feel unwanted.
Yeah.
No one likes to feel like they were replaced.
Right.
Because I know I felt that way in the past, but I felt replaced, and it's like, what did I do? Why is that better? We always laugh about that. Not better, different.
Yeah, it's different. So it's always the reference. I mean, we've heard it a zillion times, right? On tons of TV shows.
I heard it in real life.
Yeah, right. But we always laugh at the episode of Friends when Ross, they were on a break.
Oh, yeah.
Right? We were on a break. They were on a break, and Ross goes and sleeps with the chick downstairs, and then Rachel finds out, and she's like, was she good? She's like, I don't know. She wasn't good. She was different. And good, different. I don't know, Such a great episode. We have this discussion all the time. Actually, we debate it all the time. When it comes on, it's hilarious. And it's always the same discussion. But I don't know what I was going to say about that after that, but
you were talking about your own closure.
Right. So having your own closure shows you're showing yourself you're worth it.
Yeah.
And ultimately
that's the most important thing.
It is, and it doesn't feel like it because you're wanting the other person to give you some sort of explanation.
No.
And if you're
again, why? What do their words even fucking mean at that point?
If you're now see, there's some limbos that are not caused by you, right?
Yeah.
We talked about that a little bit earlier on, but some are self-imposed. And the self-imposed ones are when you're waiting around for somebody to give you an answer that you already have.
There you go.
So
that's a good point.
In this case, you are putting yourself in the position and waiting for an answer on something you may never get. And if you choose to stay there, then that means you don't get to move forward. You are delaying all of your progress.
Your life.
You're delaying all of your joy potentially, because some people get so stuck that they're depressed and upset and they don't know what they did.
Over the other person.
I don't have any closure. Get the fuck over it. And I don't mean that to sound insensitive, but
it's true though, because because here's the reality. If the person, so like, for example, for me, and I'll say it, the fact that he didn't want to be married to me anymore.
Yeah.
Just tell me that you didn't want to be married to me anymore, and we could have parted ways differently. Now it was still, thankfully, we were still able to, put it all behind us. However, for me, I would have felt better. So the way that I looked at it was, I felt disrespected.
Yeah.
And I felt unworthy and unimportant and unloved and unlovable.
Yes.
Because how do you do that to me, of all people, where I give like everything, and I'm, and not to sound murderish, but at the same time, it's like, I'm very supportive, and and it was like, what? Like, and then you're kind of like, holy shit, like, what the hell? And then, and then you realize it's, well, why am I taking all the blame? So you have to go through the cycles too, though, right?
For sure.
So you'll blame yourself, you'll cry, you get mad, you go back and cry, you blame yourself, you get mad. Like, so you roll through the cycles. It's grieving, just like if the loss of a person, like if someone passes away.
Absolutely.
It's literally, and I learned that from June.
Absolutely.
She's like, you never grieved your, this relationship. And I was like, grieved, like what? And she said, you didn't go through, like, and so I was like, okay, that was interesting.
Yeah.
Because, those are all the thoughts that go through your head. And, right away, we always want to take it on like we did something wrong, and you had a role in it.
Yeah.
You could be this much, it could be this much, it could be this much. I mean, we all have our parts in it. I was lucky enough to be able to have that conversation with my ex-husband where we talked about what his role was, what my role was, how we, basically kept each other on a hamster wheel, and it just didn't work.
Right.
And again, doesn't mean he's a bad person, doesn't mean I'm a bad person. We just did not fit well together.
Yeah.
Plain and simple.
Yeah.
End of story. You move on, wish each other well. We can have good conversations and, keep in touch with each other. Right. We're friendly enough. And it's like, there's no reason, because carrying that hate and obsession and all the other bullshit, it's literally hurting only you. Yeah. The other person moved on with their life. And then the shitty part is, if that other person knows that you're that person that just holds on to everything they say, and that you're gonna go, you keep doing the whole back and forth, and I'll take you and take you back, and then we break up and make up and fuck that make up, break up bullshit.
Right.
Fuck that shit.
Yeah.
Okay? Because it either means one of you or both of you keep going back to old ways because you didn't fucking learn anything.
Yeah.
Because one person could learn. If the other person didn't, what does that mean? That you learned what? You learned how to be a better person, and then what? You put up with the bullshit from this one who didn't learn and isn't putting in the effort. So what did you just tell yourself? I went through all this healing and did all this stuff, but I'm still going to stay with this person because we have all this history behind us, or I put all this time in. Who fucking cares?
Yeah.
That means diddly squat.
The time argument
is crap.
You know why? And I understand people feel like they don't want all of that time and effort to have been wasted, all for nothing. But you
It's
can't do
not.
shit about that.
But it's not wasted. How
No,
is it wasted?
In their mind,
right. But why is the question. Ask yourself, did you not learn anything? What did you learn?
yeah.
Right? Because here.
Or what came out of it?
What did we learn to where when we met each other, the conversations we got to have, what I pulled out of my previous marriage, what you pulled out of your previous, if we didn't have those experiences, we wouldn't have been able to bring together what we brought together to have this.
Right.
So I don't see any of it as a waste. None of it.
No.
Not even a little bit.
Of course not.
It's the mindset, though.
It is the mindset.
I think it's a bullshit excuse people give themselves because they don't want to go through the heartache. They don't want to go through the shit. Our friend that's going through this nasty ass divorce.
Yeah.
He's like, fuck. Well, this is why he didn't want to go through the divorce. In the first, years ago when he should have, because he thought, well, it just got worse as time went on.
Right.
Because this shit doesn't go away.
It doesn't. It's always
life
still
is
there,
too short, and you're living miserably. And why? Because you're ultimately choosing another person over you every single time.
Right.
What does that say to yourself, that you're letting this other person's, the external validation of other people and of the other person is more important than what you believe about yourself? That in and of itself, that should be your closure right there. Like you said, the person doesn't want you. Okay. Right. It's their loss. And you have to know that and believe it. You don't just say it. You have to mean it and know it.
I think the thing with, if your relationship is ending and you're trying to keep it together because of whatever reason, right? The kids,
finances, they own too many things.
The finances, right? Those are trivial things. Finances, and we own too many things, right? Those are trivial. When you're talking about kids,
people will say no, they're not. But.
You're what you don't understand is you're probably gonna fuck them up more by staying, right? Because you're teaching them it's okay to be treated that way.
That's correct. They learn what they learn at home.
That's correct. And they don't. I learned it from watching you.
But it's true. You learn it at home.
No, you do. You learn. You're setting them up to have similar relationships or be treated that way. And if you don't like it, you certainly don't like it for your child.
Correct.
But when you decide to stay, what's it teach them? That you stick it. In some cases, things can be repaired, right? We're not saying don't try that.
Both people.
Right. Both people have to be willing to repair it.
Not one.
And if they are, then there's nothing wrong with that.
Correct.
So anybody that's listening that's going, what the fuck are they saying? We're not saying that stuff. You
have to have the conversations, though.
Correct.
Not the I wonder what they're thinking or they should know what I'm thinking.
Right.
You have to sit down and have the hard discussions.
Right. For obviously to prevent limbo, first off,
right?
Because if that's really happening and you're wanting it to happen, then you have to do something about it.
You have to make a change.
There's I know of at least a couple of people that waited the longest time to get divorced because they felt the other person should file.
Yeah.
Right. We know at least a couple now that were doing that, and finally, it's like, why? Why are you? I don't think you're fully over that until that's gone. That's a piece. That's another limbo piece that's just holding on to you.
Yeah, because you can't do anything
and
with
weighing
your
you down.
Yeah.
And I understand that maybe there's nothing you're looking to do in your life at that time. So you're like, okay, I was the responsible one in the relationship. This other motherfucker needs to take care of it now, right?
Right.
I don't need to be the one to take care of it.
It's like a principle thing. Yeah.
It is. And I understand that.
Right.
But you have to come to terms that, well, not you, of course not. But what people aren't thinking about is what are they not able to do?
Right.
Because they're keeping themselves in that position because their ego is in the way. Because they want that other person to grow up. Hey, guess what? If they didn't grow up while you were in the relationship, now that you're out of it, they're probably not going to fucking grow up.
No, because they're probably running back to the same kind of shit they've been doing, except now it's like worse because you're not there to try to level them up.
And they're not they're not going to change.
No.
So you're waiting around for something that's not going to happen. It's another version of self-imposed limbo.
It is. And I actually know of 2 people that lost out on new relationships because they were, and it was, one of them was similar, where he wanted the wife to file instead of him.
Yeah.
And although they didn't live together and all the other shit, he was still legally married.
Yeah.
And there's people who, like, I was one of them, right? I'm like, I'm not a side piece. I'm not like, I'm like, I don't date married men kind of shit. There's people, women and men like that, who don't want to have anything to do with it.
Of course not.
When you're new to meeting someone, you know, there's so many people that are full of shit right now. You don't know when they say, I'm married, but, you know, we don't live together, or we live our separate lives, or we're whatever, we're getting divorced, or whatever people say.
Sure.
Some people are full of shit, and that's not real. They're just, you know, getting their rocks off as, you know, cheating. And there's other people that, like in our situation, I was still legally married. However, on paper only.
Yeah.
I mean, I had nothing to hide about any of it. We were very open about our situation. However, the 2 people I know, the other person wasn't willing to be with them until they were done, which kind of was like a kick in the pants to, you know, to go do it, because it was like, oh, wait a minute. You're not going to, you know, whatever. Again, I told you. And it was like, it doesn't matter. I don't want to be part of that mess. I don't want to be part of that. That person,
though, is literally showing you the way to get yourself out of that limbo place that you're just floating around in.
That other person, it potentially also makes them question, are you not over that? Like, so maybe you really
Why aren't you doing
like, you could have said to me, oh, well, I mean, in my situation is I did file. I was waiting for papers to be signed, but let's pretend the opposite. You might have been like, is she still hung up on him?
Right.
Is there still a chance she might go? I mean, that's a very real thought, especially when you first meet someone. You don't know who you're dealing with. You don't know what their history is. You don't know what their chemistry is. You don't know any of that until you actually get to know the person. Some people are like, I'm out. I don't even want to step into this arena. I'm done. I don't even, before it even starts. So you potentially run the risk. Like you said, maybe you're not looking, but what if an opportunity comes for you to meet someone, like just falls into your life, and you're like, fuck, what am I supposed to do now? I didn't get my shit together. Now it's kind of, you know, it kind of sucks that you miss out on the opportunity. And it could be like, it could be your person. It could be the most amazing, or maybe it's just this part of your life. It would have been a great partner for a while. Yes. I mean, you know, but you're missing out because you didn't want to clean up, you know, you stayed in limbo because you wanted to do, you know. Now, it just doesn't make sense.
The opposite can be true too, though. Obviously, the person that's on the other side is willing isn't even willing to take a chance. They'd rather just try and move on and see what else happens. And I understand that, and I don't. I get it. I get that you're like, okay, I'm not getting in the middle of this. And I can understand why. But if you've made a legit, strong connection with a person, and now you're going to go, like we were talking about, and this is a sidebar, right? It's a sidebar, but it isn't. You know, actually, it's a good example of Limbo, now that I think about it. At first, I didn't think it was going to be. So we're watching this fucking trash TV, Love Island, right? There's a young lady on there.
Oh,
who's a mom.
Okay.
She's 24. She has a 4-year-old that's going on a 5-year-old daughter. She didn't want to tell anybody at first. She told a couple of girls when she first got onto the island. But she didn't want to tell any of the men at first, because the thought process is, I want them to get to know me and not judge me and run away from me right away. And, you know, you and I had this discussion about it, but she was living a self-imposed limbo by not telling them, because she didn't know what the outcome was going to be.
Yep.
They could have been like, listen, I'm too young to be a dad at this point in time.
Yeah.
And I don't want that. And ultimately, she's losing. So there's a couple of opportunities missed out. And this is why I was bringing it up is the person, the guy that she tells it to is they may have already had a conversation that said, yeah, I want to have kids later on in life or whatever. And now you're given the opportunity to have a child in your life and you're just not ready. So you're going to throw away all of the time in the connection you have with the person because of that. Right. And this isn't the stay together because we have so much time together, right? The relationship's gone sour.
They've known each other for 72 hours.
Right. They've known each other for 72 hours. But it isn't that situation where you're putting yourself in a bad, it's something that you eventually had a goal to have. Right. It's just come sooner than you expected. Yeah. Right? Mm-hmm. And me, logically, if I'm that person on the other side, I'm going, I guess to me, I go, this isn't that big a deal. It is a big deal. But in the point that you made is, well, the person that has the secret didn't tell it. So it creates this sense of potential betrayal. Yep. And that's
what else are you hiding?
Correct. And I absolutely get that. Mm-hmm. But the person that has the secret, the longer they wait to tell them, the harder it is to tell them.
Yes.
And the more hurt the person's going to be.
Because of the attachment, which is what we talked about yesterday.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And all of that time from start to finish is limbo.
It is.
It
was, yeah.
You're spinning plates to not tell your secret.
And all anxious. And she was very like, oh
right,
my God.
about
and then she's watching everything he's doing, and is he being weird now?
Well, especially after she told them, now it's like
now she's even more limbo.
Especially
it's another limbo now.
She put herself in another
limbo.
one. That's
she
correct.
put herself in relationship limbo now.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. My thought on that was, you tell the person right away. I understand why she said it. She said in real life she gets judged for it, and people don't want to be with her.
Absolutely.
And that's okay though. Because why do you want to be with someone, and what do you want to do? Like, to me, I look at it as, are you trying to trap the person so that they fall for you, and then you tell them this story of what's happening? Well, like, I would feel betrayed.
Yeah, of course.
On the other side of that, I would feel like you tried to trap me, you lied to me. What else are you lying about? And if you can keep a secret that big, I don't know. How am I supposed to trust you in life as my partner when shit happens? I have to worry about how you're going to handle it. See, for me, I would have been all about tell me from the beginning. Yeah. But that's me, because I'm an A to B as quickly as possible kind of person. Right. But it's interesting though, because I as well can see, like we talked about, from both sides. I think it's just I don't know. I think there's a lot of people that aren't understanding that the decisions you're making, I think they're ignoring their gut. Yeah. I feel like, we all have that inner gut feeling that we're born with. And just like any other animals have they know to run, or, they know to hide or whatever. We have those same kind of instincts and gut feelings, but we're taught to be needy. Yeah. We're taught to, right? You cry, someone shoves food in your mouth. You cry, you get your diaper changed. You cry, someone holds you, and then in the codependence and all the other shit continues your whole life, and sometimes literally your whole life. Yeah. Forever. And you don't really learn how to take care of yourself and do things for yourself. Right. And so that's the part where I feel bad for people, because if you can't count on yourself, like I'm sad if you can't count on yourself. And so it's kind of a limbo story. It kind of ties into this, but also ties in with the closure piece too a little bit, because it would have stayed in limbo had I not, I feel like, right, to a certain extent. So I was for a short stint of time, I was on a dating app, and I actually met someone on the dating app who we actually started talking. And we started talking in the app, then we started texting, and then we started talking on the phone. And we actually went out on an actual date. Okay. And the funny part is he was nice, you know, he said like all the right things. He was, you know, I don't know how to put it in. He was doing all the right things to make it seem like he was interested and all this other stuff. And I was kind of like, you know, I was in limbo, right? In my separation. I didn't really understand. Like, I knew that my ex kind of already moved on, even though it hadn't been spoken, but I knew that he did. And so I'm like, maybe I should and whatever. So I was kind of, you know, whatever. And the funny part was we went out, we were talking and, you know, he texted me, we went out, he said, whatever he said, you know, I'll talk to you tomorrow, this and that. And then I didn't hear from him, which I didn't expect to hear from him. But like 3 days later, he wasn't in the app anymore. he took himself off the app. So we weren't matched anymore. And I never heard from him ever again. And I remember thinking, if my first thought was, what did I do? Was I weird? Sure. And then all of a sudden I was talking to my one friend who lived across the street from me at the time, much younger than me, but also amazing at helping me through all this stuff. And she was like, oh my God, you need to text him and you need to call him and I was like, no, I don't need to do any of that. She's like, don't you want to know why he stopped and I said, I do want to know, but I'm going to tell you what, it was my first time being able to say to myself, why would I call the person who ditched me and ghosted me? Yeah. Why would I call him just to try to get an answer? First of all, it looks like I'm chasing after him, which fuck him. It was his loss. And secondly, like, this was a great opportunity for me. Otherwise, I was going to sit in limbo and think about it and think about it and think about it and drive myself crazy. What did I do? What did I not do? What could I have done different? So instead, I wrote it. I closed it myself. I wiped my hands clean of it and never thought of him again, never said anything, didn't care. Yeah. It was great, actually. And I was proud of myself and I felt good. It was a little weird because it's not something I would normally do because I'm always ready to go attack, like, what the fuck? Why'd you do this or whatever? But in that situation, I did it for me because it showed that if someone shows you they don't want to be with you, then you believe them. Correct. And you don't, and that's it. There's no quote unquote trying to make it work. If you're trying to make it work, that means it's not working. Yeah, for sure. I mean, right? It's not working.
I think there's when it comes to limbo and how much it sucks, there's lots of limbos that we don't necessarily have control over and we can't do a whole lot about. We have no choice but to wait. Yeah. Right? When we're talking about, when we use the example of the job, or...
when I didn't know what was going on, the limbo we had.
Right. You know, medical issue, right? You don't know from...
We did not.
From initial diagnosis to, you know, you have to go see a specialist, and we know that takes months a lot of the time. Yep. Now,
that was
the difference, though, is, you know, in the job interview example that I used, you can't keep calling. No, they're going to get pissed off,
right? Yeah,
and they already told you, right? You already know it's going to wait. Yep. You can't change certain limbos, right? But you need to understand that you have to look at it and think about, okay, is there something I can do to change this? And I think the ways that you do that, if you didn't pick up on some of this stuff while we were already talking about it, is you have to rip the fucking Band-Aid off.
I was going to say, it's about ripping off the
Band-Aid. It's ripped off the Band-Aid and get it done.
And feel the pain.
Right.
It hurts.
Right.
It hurts.
Right.
Anyone who tells you it doesn't hurt, it all fucking hurts.
It all hurts.
It hurts, it sucks, and it's something you need to go through to get to the other side.
It sucks less when you're the one in control of it, though.
Absolutely.
So if you're the one controlling it, instead of allowing the other person or whatever the situation is to control you, you're way better off.
Very well said.
And so, I mean, one is rip the Band-Aid off. That means ask the questions you have to ask. Do the things you have to do, whatever it is.
Delete the person out of the phone.
I was thinking that a second ago.
Delete them out of the phone. Before I start talking. Delete the conversations. Block them on social media.
Don't.
All of it.
Because it's negative to your healing. So if it's a breakup, you're going back and you're looking at their you're looking at all of their. You go on Facebook and look at it. Okay, if you're a Facebook person. If you're on Instagram, you're going to look, see what they posted.
Yeah.
Well,
who are they in the pictures
maybe
with?
today they posted on their reels or whatever that they were out hanging out with people, and maybe it's somebody you didn't see before. And you know, you have to understand that that's a snapshot, right? Mm-hmm. When we put ourselves in the position of following the other person on social media, the people are only showing you what they want you to see.
That's correct.
Right?
Yep.
So if you sit at home and you go, why isn't she or why isn't he hurting like I'm hurting?
Right.
Doesn't mean that they're not.
That's correct.
And it doesn't mean that they are.
That's correct.
Okay? You don't fucking know.
And who cares what they're doing?
Know. Correct.
Who gives a shit about them? You push it back
that
on yourself.
Correct.
Who cares about them?
Now,
care about me.
Now, you're not being petty by blocking them.
Nope.
Okay?
It's healthy for you.
You're doing that to take care of yourself.
That's correct.
And you're shutting it down for a while.
Yep.
Because that's not something you can handle.
I lived it.
You got to shut it down.
Uh-huh.
If you shut it down for a while and you run into the person or you want to re-add them or they reach out to you and say, hey, you know, you're in a better place and you can deal with that, then deal with it. Maybe you won't ever be. You know what? That's okay.
It is okay.
Who gives a shit?
Right. You just wish them well and move on.
Because social media is a bunch of lies, essentially. Because, you know, we've seen it with news articles. You know, they did it.
God.
And I'm not getting on a political bandwagon here, but there was the whole thing about, and I was surprised by this, but not surprised by it because all of the media on all sides is full of shit and they'll spin whatever they can. So when the Pope died and they ripped on the president for wearing this color suit and they zoomed in on the picture and he only had this, when you zoomed out a little bit from the original picture and there were people all over around him wearing same color or not black, right? It's like, what the fuck? You're only getting to see a little bit
manipulation.
Right.
Yeah. It's fucked up.
And most people aren't putting all of the other stuff that they're feeling out there. I know, but shame on the
people who aren't fucking doing their due diligence to find out if they're being lied to or not and just automatically accepting everything, by the way.
Yeah. That's a whole other thing.
That's why I'm saying you take care of yourself, and who gives a shit about the other.
Yeah, absolutely.
At this moment in time, you heal on yourself, and when you're healed, then you can go back and have those conversations.
You can't worry about Facebook post because it's only a snapshot.
And sometimes it's a dig.
Go back and look. Sometimes it is a dig. Sometimes it's like, haha, look how great I'm doing.
Oh, look at how great I look.
Right. And then they go cry in their shower or whatever, right? You know, it could be any number of things that they go and do. Yeah. But you can't follow that stuff.
No, it's not helping you.
Get rid of it. Because what it's doing is extending your limbo, because
yes, it is.
You're going to get emotional about it and you're going to feel a certain way. And then it's just going to cause this whole spiral. And you might have stepped up from, you know, level 2 to level 4, but now you're back down to 2 because your shit just came crashing down partly because of your ego.
Yeah.
You feel like they've moved on and you think something's wrong with you because you haven't. And how did they get over me that fast? You know what? You don't know that they're over you and you don't know that they're not. If they got over you that fast, then that means they really didn't care about you that much.
That's right.
Okay.
What do they call it? A place card? You're a place card.
Right.
You were a place card.
You can't stay there. So rip the Band-Aid off. That's the first biggest thing you can do.
And stop holding on to them so tight. It's like holding on to sand. Yeah. You're holding on to a relationship that's gone. It's like holding on to a handful of sand. There's nothing left in your hand.
Right.
So you're holding on tightly, and think about the grip that you have, and how much energy you're wasting holding on to something so tightly that isn't even there anymore.
Right.
You have to do it for yourself.
It's a great metaphor if you think about it, because if you hold on to sand and really grip tight, and then you open your hand, there's only a few crumbs left. That's true. Usually that's pretty much what you got in your relationship, probably. Ultimately.
The thing is, in reality, you have to be good with sitting with yourself, being by yourself, being able to be home alone, or, and it's not to say you don't have friends or other people around you, whatever, but you have to find all of that inner peace. That is not bullshit. If you don't have that inside of you, that that you're the only person that can heal you, the outside, that doesn't, even taking medicine, think about, you have to take Tylenol every 2 to 4 hours. It doesn't make it go away completely.
Right. Correct.
Whatever you're trying to put into you to make you feel better.
Right.
Isn't making you feel better permanently, but if you put in the work and you heal yourself, truly heal yourself, you're healed now. There's no need. You don't need the Band-Aids. You don't need the Tylenol. You don't need the whatever the hell else you're trying to shove in your, to get rid of the pain. You have to go through the pain. I think, to be honest, the biggest thing when I have conversations with people, I don't want to go through the pain. Oh. But what happens what happens? This is so, as someone who lived through this last year, I remember thinking, if today's the last day that I open my eyes on this earth, was I happy with the way that I lived my life? Like, did I have any regrets of anything I didn't do or anything? And thankfully, I didn't really. What I did see, though, was I had so much more I wanted to do, so much more I wanted to live. I mean, like, and I just think to myself, all the dumb, petty shit just doesn't fucking matter.
Right.
However, we look around us all the time and they're taking all the petty and making big mountains. I'm not interested in that. Coming and thinking about how close we can, I mean, literally you could walk out the door tomorrow and get hit by a bus. You can get some random ass disease, like all kinds of things that can happen.
Right.
And you just wasted your life sitting around being upset over what?
Right.
Like, I don't know. I think I knew that too, but I think until I actually laid in bed the night before going to the hospital to have surgery, I don't think I really thought about it as much as I did that night.
No, probably not. Yeah.
That was like a real eye-opener for me. And when I start getting upset about things now, a year and a half later, I think to myself, remember that night when you were laying in bed and you were like, damn, this could be the last time. It's a reminder to me that, you know what, this really doesn't matter. That's why it's a little easier for me to be like this.
Go back, right. I wanted to go back to talking about that, though. That's one of the things I wanted to say when we're talking about medical stuff. I know we're touching on a lot of topics here, but they all follow the same principle. Yeah, you change and work on what you can change. And in the medical stuff, we talked about this a little bit last year. When you're going through something, you're waiting to see a specialist or you're waiting to get a test done, and they tell you, well, the first one we have is this. But, sometimes if you call, we'll have openings pop up. You can do that. It's one of the things that you had done. So you were waiting for an MRI. You're waiting for an MRI, and they said, well, if you call, sometimes we'll have an opening. And we didn't want to wait. So what Tina did was you called every day to ask, hey, is there an opening? Is there an opening? Is there an opening? And then you happen to hit it one day, and it didn't take long. Because people cancel appointments all the time.
Right.
So you have the choice. And we have a friend like this right now, actually. You have the choice of waiting and hoping for the best, or you make the difference in your own fucking life. You make the phone call so that you can get in there sooner, because the sooner you know what's going on, the sooner you can move on and work to fix it.
Correct.
Even if you, God forbid, have a terminal illness, you at least know what you're dealing with. And you know what? You can make plans to live out the rest of your days however the hell you want to make them. But if you sit around being scared of what the answer is,
or just letting them,
the great example is, your dad saying it. Well, I don't go to the doctor because they always find something. Well,
yeah, that came from my grandpa.
Okay, right. Him saying, right. I just remember your dad saying it to us. So I don't go because they always find something. Well, yeah, okay, maybe. It's not like they're making stuff up, and I feel like that's what that is. They always find something wrong. Well, yeah, we're people. We don't most of the time take care of ourselves, and they're gonna find shit.
Yeah.
But the sooner you find out what's wrong, the sooner, unless you waited too long to get there. And that's the thing. you could sit in limbo for so long that there's no going back.
That was so frustrating. Yeah, that I don't know how anyone can do that to themselves.
They do it
mentally. That was so.
They lock them. So what happens
is
they
don't do that to yourselves, you guys.
They get locked up.
No.
And they freeze.
No.
And they don't keep moving forward. But it's the same way emotionally with a relationship.
It is.
You freeze because you don't know what to do or where to go because you're waiting for something that you're never going to get unless you go get it yourself.
Yes. And you know what else I was going to say real quick on that? Part of it is a lot of times the limbo that people experience in the relationship is because a lot of people automatically assume that you're going to get back together with that person.
Yeah.
That it's only temporary.
Yeah.
Like I remember saying, "Hey, are you coming back?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'll be back tomorrow." And he never came back ever.
Right.
Right. But I was like, "Oh, are you coming back tomorrow?" You know, the night that he left. And then wondering, oh, is this over? Is it not over? Is he coming back? Like I drove myself nuts for like a month. I didn't even tell anybody what was happening except my boss and my assistant at the time. I didn't share with my family. I was like in my head. I was crazy.
Yeah.
And then you wonder, are you going to go back? And then even after like several months, then, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, you know, people always get back together. No, people don't always get back together. And a lot of times when they do, it doesn't work again.
It's not the same. Right.
And it doesn't work again. And Correct. Like I said earlier, if only one person is working on themselves and the other person isn't,
what do you do?
It's not fitting. And it's okay if it doesn't fit, but that's part of the limbo though.
Yes.
Is you stay in limbo because you're like, all right, I'll just stay right here. And then when they want to come back, they can come and get me. Why would you put yourself in that situation, by the way?
There's a point in time where you have to call it, right? You have to give up the ghost.
Yeah.
You can't, in your scenario, you wait a little bit because they said, they're coming back, right?
Well, and
but then there's a period. Correct.
So,
yeah, of course.
I mean,
everything's situational.
Right, of course.
So there's variables to all of it. But the idea is okay, after a certain point in time,
you're like,
you have to go out and you have to take control of the situation for yourself.
Which I did.
And go.
Yep.
Because,
that was it. I saw, like you said, the social media. I knew it wasn't.
Right. So basically, the biggest advice we can give you if you're sitting in limbo or you're worried about limbo or whatever is nut up. You need to fucking pull your bootstraps up,
go
and
through
dig
the pain.
In and
you know what?
Get it done.
What you don't understand is the pain is what gets you the freedom.
Yes.
The pain is what gets you the relief. The pain is what gets you to the other side. Is where the healing, because now the pain is gone, and once when you truly understand it and you went through it. It's such a sense of accomplishment for yourself.
Absolutely.
And you showed yourself you are very important and lovable and everything else, and that you're worthy. And when you know that about yourself, it doesn't really matter what it doesn't matter the rest of it, because
it doesn't matter what anybody
it really
thinks.
Doesn't. Yeah. And we see it all the time. People change on a dime anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you can only rely on yourself. So why would you be putting all your eggs in someone's basket and putting all of your life and your things on someone? I mean, you have people there because you want them there, not because you need them there. There's a big difference,
Correct.
Right? And so I think once you get to that healed level, you realize, you're the cake and the other people around you are the frosting.
Right.
Right? You have you can eat cake by itself. You don't need the frosting. The frosting's an extra. The frosting's a luxury. It's a benefit. Makes life sweeter.
Right.
But you're the cake.
Yeah.
So you need to treat yourself that way.
I'm the motherfucking cake.
But you know what I mean? Like that's the truth.
Yep.
I think that's the part. That's the healing part. Is you have to be able to do it on your own. Again, not saying you don't ask for help. Therapy, friends, read books or listen to podcasts or whatever that, watch, maybe there's a documentary or movies or things that potentially can help you. However, ultimately it has to come from inside. You have to feel it.
Correct.
And then the healing is there.
And they ultimately, those things, like you just said, can help you, but you actually have to implement them.
Yes. Do the work.
You can't just look at them
Correct.
and say, oh, I'm so much better.
The meme farmer.
Meme farmers.
Norm loves the meme farmers.
Fucking ridiculous. Anyway. So.
Yeah.
That's all we got to say on that at this point in time. So yes, as a reminder, people, you're the fucking cake.
You're the fucking cake.
We should make a shirt that says I'm the fucking cake and put a cake on it.
You can eat cake.
Hey.
By itself. It doesn't need frosting.
No, I'm not making fun of your example. I'm agreeing with you. I'm reminding people.
And you're making t-shirts.
That's right. So yeah. Anyway.
Heal. We want people to heal.
Thanks for listening.
Yes.
Thanks for supporting us.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Anybody has any questions? Reach out to us.
Comments.
Yep. Where can they reach us, Tina?
They can reach us.
Stop staring at me and do this. It's not like this is our first episode.
Real.shower.talk on Instagram.
Yes.
realshowertalk@gmail.com via email.
And Real Shower Talk on Facebook, right?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah, absolutely. Until next time.
Bye.